What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and we're back for another episode of the Super Smash Brothers Platform Fighter tutorial series. In today's episode we are going to be going over our widget navigation interface and controlling our pause menu, or really any of our menus. In the previous episode we created the widget navigation interface, which was essentially a set of functions that we could use to control something in our game. Specifically, we want to have functions for all of our movement, such as up, down, left, right, that we're going to have on our menus. We want to do this so that we can control every menu using these same controls, and we can fill out different behavior for every menu if we choose to. But say we have a subset of controls we're always going to use. Instead of recreating that same logic and same bindings every single time, we can just do this in the widget navigation interface, call it within our player controller, and be done with it. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So again, previous episode we created the widget navigation interface, but this episode we're going to be using it. It's not going to affect our actual gameplay so much, although you could use it for things other than menus if you chose to. But for us, it's going to basically make all of our logic for all our menus very similar, or at least basing off of the same thing. That way it's very easy to expand upon and add new menus as we're going through the tutorial series. Now before we hop into today's episode, if you're interested in what you see on the screen here, so our Super Smash Brothers and Platform Fighter, with our hitboxes, our items, our sudden death, our different game modes, and a lot more, I'll link you to the entire Platform Fighter tutorial series. If you're only interested in the widget navigation interface and creating interfaces or menu navigation in general, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to follow along with the whole series to follow those episodes. I do recommend that you watch the previous episode where we actually created the widget navigation interface. We are going to be expanding upon that today, so of course we need to have that ready. And if you watch that episode, you'll know exactly what we have for this episode to work off of. So with that said, we can go ahead and get started. Now this is a code and blueprint tutorial series. Pretty much everything is going to be in the code today. So we can go over to the code. So now we're here in my IDE of choice, which is Visual Studio, but you can use any IDE. And specifically in last episode, we created our widget navigation interface.cpp and .h. So the CPP doesn't have any logic in here. It just includes the header file. And then in the header file, we set up some functions that we wanted to be able to use in any widget or any menu. We don't have to use all of them, but we can. So they're blueprint implementable event, which means that we fill out the logic in the blueprint, but we can call it from code. And they're also blueprint callable in case we want to call it from the blueprint. Like I mentioned earlier, our current examples are move up, down, left, right, but we could also have start, back, select, and a lot more. And by the end of the last episode, we could see that these events existed and we could access them within the widgets, within blueprints, but we did not have a way to call them or trigger them. That's what we're doing for today's episode. So what I would like to do is go into our base player controller.h and set up some functions. That way we can call these widget navigation interface functions, and thus any widgets that inherit that interface or implement that interface can handle this behavior. So first things first, let's go to where we want to do this. I'll do it below the perform start input logic, and I'll make one for void menu up. You could just do up or up pressed or whatever you want. I do like to keep my inputs separate from menus and gameplay, so I let players choose their bindings on gameplay elements. I typically prefer to have relatively static inputs for the menu inputs, or at least separate inputs. So if we bind them separately, they're not affecting gameplay elements. This isn't always the case, and it depends on your game if you want to do this or not, but I like having them separate so that they don't have to share the same inputs if we don't want them to. So we have void menu up, the menu up input was pressed, and actually I'll make it match this comment above. So handle logic that occurs when the menu up input is pressed. And it's really going to be the same thing for all these today. So we're going to set up the 4 that we made in our widget navigation interface, which is up, down, left, right. So I'll come in here and we'll do menu down and make sure we change the comment, and then menu left. Again, make sure we change the comment, and menu right. Change the comment one more time. And now we are ready to make these functions, so we can go to baseplayercontroller.cpp and go down here, void a base player controller menu up. And we can just set them all up now because why not? So void a base player controller menu down. Copy and paste these if you want. Void a base player controller menu left. and void a base player controller, menu right. So here are our 4 functions. Now, what I essentially want to do is take any widget that we could possibly be on and try to call our widget navigation interface function on it. And to do this, I need to know what widget we are on. And to do that, we would need a variable to keep track of our current widget. So we can go back to baseplayercontroller.h, and we can go down below this, the current widget being controlled by the user. And this can be user widget pointer current widget. So literally keep track of the current widget that is on the screen or that the user is controlling. And let's make this property. We can make it edit anywhere with blueprint read write, so we can edit it and access it within the graph. We'll give it a category of menus. And actually I'm going to change my category down here of my pause menu class to just be menus as well. That way I can find all these things together because they are similar. All right, then also I'm going to separate my values here a little bit. I'm going to put the pause menu class in private, and I will put the current widget and most of the things above it in public. The constructor can stay private, and I'll keep the overrides in private as well. So we can keep private up here if we want, just for the basic stuff. Our new functions will be public. Our current widget variable will be public. And the pause menu class will be private. I've gone over this before a little bit, but we'll go over it more in the series as it progresses. Essentially, these just determine who can access these variables or functions. So certain things that we don't want other people to change, we don't need to make public and give them access. We can just set them in private. Things that we may call from elsewhere, we can make public. And to be honest, we're probably not going to call any of these from elsewhere. But I typically like to do a pass toward the end of the project and put everything where it should be. At least for personal projects, because I do always do passes of my work and make sure that it is as clean as possible by the end of it. But of course, feel free to do with it as you wish. Regardless, once we have our current widget, we can go into our baseplayercontroller.cpp, and we can set our current widget value to the default value, which is going to be null pointer. And we can just do this by going into the constructor, typing current widget equals null pointer. When we go to a widget, we need to set the current widget to that value. We have a few ways we could do this. One way is to set it in the code, like when we create the pause menu in this function here. We create the pause menu, we add it to the viewport. Right after this, I could set the current widget. So we could set the current widget to the created pause menu and pause menu widget. And we can do current widget equals pause menu. This is an option. Another option is to set this value in the blueprint in the widget itself when it's created. That is also possible. For now, we're just focusing on controlling the pause menu really, but all of our widgets are eventually going to follow this. So for now, I will just set current widget to the pause menu when it is created, but eventually that will encompass a lot more than this. Now, in each of our menu up, menu down, menu left, menu right functions, we need to grab our current widget and see if it implements the interface. And we can do this by checking if current widget is valid to begin with. So if current widget. If it is not valid, then there's nothing to do. We don't have a widget that is up, so menu up, menu down, menu left, and menu right are essentially ignored. If it is valid, then we can check and see if the current widget implements a given interface. So we can do this by typing if current widget, arrow, get class. So this will get the specific class of the widget. This is important because then we can get to a more granular level, such as if this is a pause menu, if this is our main menu. And once we have this, we know if this class implements the interface or not. And we can figure that out by typing arrow implements interface, parentheses, because it is a function. And we're going to put in our widget navigation interface. So that's widget navigation interface. And we want to get the static class of it. Basically, that just means we get what the widget navigation interface is instead of constructing a new one, just determining the type that we're looking for here. To actually use this type, we need to include it, so we can go up to the top and include widget navigation interface.h. And that is our custom widget navigation interface class that we made here. In this function right here, this widget navigation interface : it is just static class. This gets the static class. we don't have to type get in front of it. So now we basically just determine if the widget that the user is interacting with implements the UWidget navigation interface. And if it does, then we can call functions on it. If it doesn't, we don't want to do anything. At least not with this interface. We may have other logic we want to do. And at this point, you can copy this whole section and put it in each menu up, menu down, menu left, menu right, because these checks are going to be used for all of them. Now, if we go back to our widget navigation interface, we have the UWidget navigation interface, which is the class that is inheriting from UInterface. And then we have the interface class itself, iWidget navigation interface. iWidget navigation interface is the one with the functions in it. So now we can make calls directly on this by typing iWidget navigation interface, : and then we can call execute underscore and the name of the function. So for menu up, we're going to call execute underscore move up. And in here, we have to pass in what we're calling it on, the U object, and that is going to be our current widget because we know the current widget implements that interface. And then we can just do this for our other functions as well. So it's going to be iWidget navigation interface, : execute move down, passing in current widget. Menu left is going to be move left. So iWidget navigation interface, : execute move left, current widget. And menu right is going to be iWidget navigation interface, : execute move right, passing in current widget. Next, we need to bind these functions to inputs. It's going to be a very similar process as how we bound start. So if we load the editor back up again, the editor is back open, so we can go to edit project settings, or if you're using enhanced input, you can do it this way. But we're still using the standard input system within Unreal. So we're going to go down to engine input, and we're going to make sure that we have action mappings for these. Now we do have a menu left and a menu right, and we have a menu up and a menu down. We also have a confirm. We'll just focus on up, down, left, right like we have been for the rest of the episode. But if you don't have these, just add a new input action, new action mapping right here, plus action mapping, give it a name, and then fill out the inputs for it. So I have keyboard and gamepad support in the series. So if we go to menu left, it is the A key on the keyboard or gamepad left thumbstick left. Menu right is the D key on a keyboard or gamepad left thumbstick right. Menu up is the W key on a keyboard or gamepad left thumbstick up. And menu down is S on a keyboard or gamepad left thumbstick down. Now if I go back to the code, I need to add all the bindings for these. So we have start in here already. That's fine. And then we want to add input component, bind action. And then we want menu up. We'll do it in the same order as our functions. And we want to call this function when we press the menu up input. The object that we're calling it on is this, which means this player controller. And what we're calling is a base player controller, : menu up. And note that we have the ampersand here because we could actually call this function or a different function from another class. So we have to be explicit and say we're calling a base player controller menu up. And then we can copy and paste this if you want because it's going to be very similar, but we need to use menu down, menu left, and menu right for our strings. These are the exact input names in my project settings. And then make sure you call the right function as well. So menu down, menu left, and menu right. Now at this point we have bound all of them. So we can launch the editor again. And now if we go into our functional BPs, widgets, menus, pause menu, and go to the graph, we had already added some print strings for event move up and move down, and we tried calling them manually to make sure that they were working. But as you can see, we took that logic out. So now we're just relying on when these events get called, which is going to be from the player controller now. So if we load up our game, and I'll skip through everything here, and we'll get into our game, and I can press the P key to pause the menu, and then I can press the corresponding keys on my keyboard to print the string. And you'll notice nothing is printing when I'm doing this. Did we do it wrong? Well, no, not necessarily. So another thing we need to account for is when the game is paused, we still need to be listening for inputs. So if we go back to the code one more time and we go to a base player controller, come up here. So I'll leave some comments, set the default values for variables. And I'll put one up above here capture inputs while the game is paused. There is something we can do for this that already exists within Unreal. We don't have to make it, and it is called B should perform full tick when paused, and we want to set that to be true. So when the game gets paused, some things get optimized out by design. That way we're not doing a bunch of extra logic that we don't need to be doing. However, in this case, when we need to capture input on the pause menu, we do need to perform the full tick. So if we relaunch the editor again, and I paused my game, but now when I input these things, the print strings are working. And if I had left and right print strings, they would also be working. So at this point, since we know that this is working, we can go in here to our pause menu again. And you can take out these print strings if you want. Feel free to test event move left and move right, but we don't need to. They should be working. And then in the next episode where we focus on this content, we will actually fill out the logic of navigating the pause menu itself. The super cool thing about this is we can now implement this interface and put these events in here, and as long as current widget is set to that menu, we will be able to trigger these events in any widget. So this has huge benefits for us going forward. Now, one thing that we're going to have to worry about is the fact that the current widget will technically still be valid when the pause menu is destroyed. It will still be pointing at that even when we resume and remove it from parent. So what we should really do is get the player controller here and reset current widget. Now we can do this more elegantly, but for today's episode, just to make sure things are working, we can literally get player controller and cast it to our type, cast to base player controller. And we can drag off of it and type set current widget and just leave it blank, which will put it to null pointer, or essentially invalid. And then you won't be running into any issues because we did set it properly. But again, note that this is something we can do better and we can clean it up so that it's more dynamic. And now you're good to go. One other thing about this is that our player controller is now binding the menu up input action, which shares the same key as our jump input action. Which means if we don't explicitly handle the jump input in the player controller, your character will no longer be able to jump because the character function for it won't be called. It's not a big deal, it's a very simple fix, but just be aware of that. So if you want to keep playing around with your game and you don't want to handle your jump function in here yet, you can just comment out these bindings right here and everything will still work except for stuff in today's episode because we won't be able to trigger it with these inputs. But we need an entire episode on converting all of the inputs from our character to our player controller. So we're not ready for that right now. So just be aware of that. It is just natural. Now, if you have a different input for menu up than you do for jump, it will work. So another solution is to keep this uncommented and then just make menu up a different input than jump, or jump a different input than menu up. This also applies to crouch or any left and right inputs as well. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and consider joining the Patreon, YouTube membership, or Discord subscriptions to support the channel further. I really appreciate all who have, and I am so incredibly grateful that you guys are enjoying this series as much as I am because I'm having a blast making it, and you guys are amazing, so thank you so much. If you ran into any problems following this tutorial or any of my tutorials, feel free to join the Discord community. There is a link in the description, and I would be happy to help you out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.